Abhinav Bangia, founder and CTO from Olho. And so I already hinted who's going to be moderating, the one who comes and the one who is all energy, ladies and gentlemen. So allow me to please once again warmly welcome on the screen your moderator for the session. This is Lloyd Mathias, angel investor and business strategist. Let's talk about that. And Lloyd, it's over to you with your people.
Thank you, Shika. Thanks for that warm introduction. And warm welcome, Kaushik and Abhinav. I think this is a penultimate session of the day. I think there's a closing keynote immediately after this. So we're going to keep this tight and crisp down to about 15 minutes. I think what we're here to talk about is very clear, is advertising fraud. But just to set the context for our audience, back in September, KPMG India released a report, Media and Entertainment Report. And this was the first report that came into the market after the pandemic. And one of the big startling finds of that report was that they are projecting that in the financial year 2021, which is the year that we are currently on right now, digital ad spend on digital and OTT will overtake print. Now, most of us have been in the marketing world and the business world for the last 2 decades, and we recognize that the two big daddies were always television and print. So most of Indian advertising, about 35 to 40% advertising went into television, and the next big chunk of around 30 to 35% went to print. So between these two, they were about 75 to 80%. The balance 20 comprised cinema, radio, outdoor, billboards, all the rest, and digital. What has happened is the pandemic has accelerated digital in a manner that was unthinkable. And therefore, this year, one understands that print went through a rough patch because, when the lockdown was announced for 2 or 3 months, we didn't have any physical newspapers. But there's also a generation growing for who waking up to the newspaper is no longer a habit. Right? They're reading it online, they're getting their news through social media and Twitter. So I think that is one significant switch that has kind of happened over the pandemic. What has not been as widely reported and understood is the fact that as marketers are switching their spends to digital, a lot of this money is actually being wasted, right? We've all recognized that on print, we have a measure called the IRS, the India Readership Survey. On television, BARC brings out what is called the TRPs. And we know there's an element of, let's say, a 4-5% mismatch sometimes between the numbers they report. But what we are yet to recognize that in digital, the extent of mismatch could be as high as 20 to 25%. So indeed, most marketers are going to be wasting you can say typically 250 rupees out of every 1,000 rupees they spend on digital, which is wasted to fraud, right? And this is a global phenomenon. The belief is that Juniper estimates that $42 billion of ad spend in 2019 globally, online and mobile, was lost to fraud, right? So that's one big. The Wall Street Journal said that 28% of web traffic comes from non-humans, right? Bots, whatever else you have them. And Kochawa says that 87 billion revenue will be lost to mobile ad fraud in 2022. So this phenomena is huge, it's rampant, and it's affecting India in various ways. And there are various types of digital fraud. I'm not going to go deep, but there's hidden ads, there is click hijacking, there's fake installations, there's conversion frauds. What we have is therefore, two very good perspectives, one from a marketer at Ford, and the other from someone who's working with us, who's founded a startup that's tackling ad fraud. And I would love to hear both your perspectives. So I'll start with you first, Kaushik. What is your sense? You guys do a lot of digital advertising as Ford India. What is your sense of the volume and the amount of digital fraud for all the advertising money that you guys spend?
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for having me here. But quite frankly, the reality is digital fraud is huge. I would say the 20% number that you spoke about, 2025, I would say that's probably understated. It's probably much more than that. And if you look at people who advertise on digital and marketers who advertise on digital, I think clearly there are 3 kinds of people. There's one who are like ostriches, who pretend that there's nothing wrong. The other probably who don't understand the level of fraud that's rampant, and the third really who are taking aggressive actions to protect their brand and deliver ROI for their brands. So yeah, short answer to your question, I think the scale is far higher.
Right. So clearly digital fraud is a big issue and marketers recognize that. And just a quick follow on to that, Kaushik. Do you think that some part of it is because today a lot of digital buying is happening through programmatic? So one is not able to identify the source, or is it just the fact that as anything becomes bigger, it tracks more of, you can say, unscrupulous elements?
I think it's a combination of things, Lloyd. Programmatic is one. The other is the nature of the supply side, which is fragmented and walled gardens. I mean, you just have to trust the publisher as far as the data is concerned, right? And as technology evolves, honestly, it's like running on a treadmill. If you evolve something to break it, I mean, the scamsters will come up with something even smarter, right? So the fraud follows where the money is, and the money is going to digital, and it's just logical that the scamsters will go there.
Absolutely. Well said, Kaushik. I'm going to take this across to Abhinav. And Abhinav, you've been kind of working at solving this issue of digital fraud. But before you get to what the solution or what are the solutions that your firm offers, what do you think is what's emboldening these unscrupulous elements to put out so much of fraud? And do you think at some level digital media agencies can do their bit to prevent this?
So first of all, I would like to thank ET and the partners that have enabled it. So I'm very much glad to be here. Yeah. Coming back to your question, which is a great one. See, over the last 5 years, attribution has become one of the gold mines for the advertisers, right? Anything they want to show an ad, they want to get data attributed. They want to have some engagement, they want to get data attributed. Now, for the scamsters or the fraudsters, they wanted to overcome this issue. Just understand the amount of money involved here, right? If there is huge amount of money involved, right? And somebody has been making money over years, right? Now the technology has changed, attribution has come into picture. So they are trying to up their game in this era as well. So attribution, which was considered like 3 years ago, it was considered that it would solve this issue. Now we are in a position today that marketers are still feeling that no, it's not enough. Manipulation of attribution is now becoming one of the key areas where marketers are looking into. So I think we have to stop looking at the data. We have to stop looking at the attribution. We have to start looking at the manipulation, because that's where fraud is, right? Once you manipulate the data, right? Maybe the traffic was coming from Facebook or Google, right? But once it gets manipulated, it gets, projected for somebody else. So we need to start looking at the manipulation, and that's where the technology comes into picture. That's where our firms come into picture, right? We are trying to tackle fraud through the manipulation perspective, right? So this is one of the key differentiators on what is being done till now and what we are bringing different to the market, right?
So how different is Olho's offering, and how does it help prevent or reduce advertising fraud?
So so see, we don't traditionally what marketers have been they have been looking into, say, device details, they have been looking into IP addresses, they have been looking into geolocations. This is the set of parameters that they have been looking into. But these parameters are easily reverse engineered, right? You go back to your publisher or your agency and tell them, okay, this is the reason of so much fraudulent ads were served, and this is the reason. Next time that case will never happen. A new kind of case would happen, right? So how do you leverage the exponential technology that is available with us today to understand how can we segregate manipulated data from non-manipulated data? This is the difference that we have been pitching. This is the new narrative that we have been bringing in the market. Yeah.
Okay, and therefore, what is at the core of the technology? How will you do it? What is your solution? I mean, what is your offering?
So our offering is a patented technology. We are India's first company to get a patent in this space, right? And we are a non-rule based technology, right? We don't deploy any kind of rules on the client side or on our server side. The technology itself is able to segregate bad traffic and good traffic, right? Using behavior analytics, right? And see, your human traffic is going to segregate together because they have high entropy. If you understand, they have engagement which is very similar to each other, right? While even if you change as many parameters as you want, even if you want to reverse anything the fraudster wants to do, eventually they are going to segregate together the invalid traffic. And this is what is the difference, and it is a patented method. So yeah.
Okay, great. Congratulations on the patent. Kaushik, coming back to you, what do you think is the impact that fraud has for the advertisers? When I'm talking about this, I'm talking things like fake impressions, or the fact that a lot of advertisers like you are paying for cost of conversions. What is the impact it's seeing in terms of your brand, in terms of impact on brand value, and in terms of impact of customer experience?
I mean, it's huge, right? When you look at brand safety, that's one area which gets impacted. And if you look at fraud, it's wasted ROI. You're spending money, but you're not reaching the right target consumer, right? So overall, it just reduces the effectiveness of advertising, and it actually jeopardizes your brand. It has the potential to jeopardize your brand. A couple of years ago, I don't know if you remember, there were cases of brand safety concerns on some leading video publishers, right? And brands across the world took their assets and advertising down. Let's face it, and you probably know this better than anybody else. It's the brand, it's nothing else. If you can't keep that safe, I mean, all of marketing is wasted.
Yeah, and I think one of the other concerns that a lot of marketers I've spoken to also echo, and maybe you have a point there, is the fact that you lose control of the editorial environment. Today, as an advertiser, you want to see Ford cars being seen in an appropriate environment.
Absolutely.
Whereas the moment it gets into, let's say sites that are not appropriate, that's also damaging your brand and your company's reputation.
Absolutely.
So, Abhinav, going forward, what do you see the direction taking? I think, Kaushik kicked it off very well when he said it's like a treadmill, right? For every new solution that somebody brings in the market, the fraudsters, will find a fresh new problem. So how does Olho look at this evolving space in terms of addressing the need for advertisers?
All right. I think very good question. So the differentiating factor here is, see, right now, the advertiser goes back to their agencies or publishers for deductions if they catch some kind of suspicious activity, but it is not bagged legally, right? So with the platform that we have built, we are able to create court admissible reports which detect manipulation, right? So if somebody is trying to manipulate the data, right? So if we are able to catch it with admissible algorithms, right, which are admissible in court, then probably this will probably end the issue, right? If you are able to say, if you are running with a big publisher and you find some such suspicious activity, if you are able to back that activity by a techno-legal report, then things change, right? Things change for the advertisers, things change for the publishers, right? Now they know that the advertiser itself is so aware, right, that he's trying to catch each and every kind of manipulation that is targeting his budget, right? We understand that advertisers have a very, it's a two-way sword, right? On one side, they want ROI. They can't just stop running ads because they have a fear of ad fraud. And on the other side, they want to save each and every penny that is being lost, right? So creating these techno-legal reports, publisher-wise, right? And keeping it into your, data stake so that how big you can, how this can impact you, right? And can you prevent it using those data reports is somewhere we are building. So providing techno-legal report is the future of the misattribution, of the manipulation, rather than finding anomalies, right? You detect misattribution or manipulation, and then you create reports on basis of that. Yeah.
So having conversations with marketers is relatively easy, given how serious the problem is. What has been your experience?
So for major of the companies, they deploy rule-based technology to detect fraud. It has been relatively easy with our talking to advertiser. they're always open to discussion, right? If you drop an email to an advertiser, they always go back and let's hear it out, what he has to say or what the company has to say, right? So it has been an issue. That's why it's not a normal sales pitch. I mean, you're talking about ad fraud to a marketer. He wants to hear it out, right? What the offering is all about. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And last question to you, Kaushik. Therefore, are you optimistic over time that marketers are going to, let's say, have a semblance of control and able to bring this down? And is this something that you personally are working towards within your organization?
Yeah, it's a battle. It's a battle that needs to be fought every day, right? And as spends on digital medium goes up, it'll get even tougher. As far as we are concerned, we deploy tools, BAV tools for safety and controlling fraud and stuff like that. But fundamentally, what I believe is, at the end of the day, digital or advertising on digital, it's a medium. Mm-hmm. It has to lead to business outcomes. Mm-hmm. If you get trapped in vanity metrics, that's the problem. But if you keep an eye on the business metrics, so if I know that my cost per acquisition is supposed to be, let's say, I'm just picking up a number, $100, then if it's not $100, I mean, I need to keep my eye on that ball. So I think that perspective is important without really getting trapped in all the jargon and vanity metrics. If you keep that balance, I think I find that useful personally.
Fantastic. So I think that's a great point to end at. I think it's really about, like you said, it's the importance of measuring all that you do in advertising against the business outcomes or the business metrics, and keep aside the vanity metrics that very often you see marketers get lost in, the likes and the reshares and such like. I think that's
absolutely.
And I guess we're all going to be optimistic about the fact that together as a community, business, marketeers, and people are able to kind of tackle this issue about fraud. In fact, as it happens, as we conclude the session, I'm told we're going on to a keynote by Dr. Augustin Fau, who's a global expert on the ad fraud. So hopefully we can listen to some words of wisdom from there. But that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Kaushik, and thank you, Abhinav. That was a wonderful session. And with that, I hand it over back to Shika.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, Abhinav.